Hi, I'm Catherine Diorio, and welcome to Check Please, the show where regular people from all over Chicago recommend and review their favorite restaurants. So this is how the show works. Every week we have 3 guests. Each recommends his or her favorite spot, and the other 2 go check them out and see what they think. This week, account supervisor Lila Chen says the slurping satisfaction you'll get at her favorite spot is beyond compare. She says for terrific ramen and more, follow her to her recommendation. But Pastor Gerald Spice says the sizzling steak at his pick will have you preach into the choir. He says if you want to jazz up your appetite, then follow him to his classic choice. Up first, attorney Carl Shook says the ribs and brisket at his joint may please the court and everyone else. He says for a wonderful meal that'll never leave you confused, join him in Lakeview at Milt's Barbecue for the Perplexed.
My love is coming up with different ways of thinking about things, and I thought that it would be fun to have a community center in Lakeview and make it all for charity. The only way that I figured that they were going to show up is if the food was really good. And I personally am a big barbecue fan, love barbecue, so it was a natural. The food is completely inclusive. So it is strictly kosher, it is gluten-free items, it is nut-free environment, it is vegan items, and something where somebody, no matter what their restrictions are, can come in and find something that's delicious that they're going to love eating. So what did you order tonight? You know, my favorite part of owning a restaurant is coming here and visiting and talking to people from all walks of life, feeling comfortable being together, enjoying food, enjoying conversation. You know, it's terrific. It's a lot of fun being here.
Carl, you say Milt has enlightened you. Tell us why you chose it.
Fair enough. Well, a few years ago, I married into a wonderful Jewish family, and some of them keep kosher. So as I learn more about the Jewish faith and as I start taking steps to join the faith, I've had a lot of opportunities to have kosher food. Now, there aren't a lot of places, as far as I can tell in Chicago, that serve kosher food. So one of the places that we've discovered was Milt's Barbecue for the Perplexed. Now, that's a reference to a book written by a guy named Maimonides back in, I think, the 12th century. And what's really cool about Milt's is not only does it serve kosher food for people who want to stay kosher, and it has a great neighborhood vibe, but it's run as a charity almost, where all the profits go to a different local charity in the neighborhood. You can go there to be devout, you can go there to enjoy a good neighborhood barbecue place, but you're also helping the community while you go there, which is why I absolutely love this place. And the food is terrific. One of their great menu options is a smoked brisket sandwich.
I had that.
Yeah, I know, it's great.
When they brought the 3 sauces out on the side,
Yeah, the
anything
sauce
with sauce
flights.
is
Yeah.
amazing. I had to try all of them first and then try them all together, so there's just funny combinations that you can do, and then try it with the meat, try it without.
So I usually get the brisket, but this time I actually had the smoked chicken sandwich, which was like really, really smoked. It was good, and it came like on a pretzel roll, which is just, I'm a sucker for pretzel rolls. And then for the appetizer, we had the buffalo wings. And usually, you can't get ranch dressing because that's dairy, but what they do is they make it a soy base.
I was wondering what that sauce was.
Oh, it was, because we asked, because I was perplexed, for lack of a better term. And yeah, they do it soy based, but it really, the taste is indistinguishable for ranch.
Well, I went in with, sort of the stereotypical notion of what I was going to find in a kosher barbecue place.
Because there's stereotypes for kosher.
Yeah, I mean, we all live with them. But what I found was that this was a much more sophisticated kind of place. We were there in the early evening, and so there were families with young kids. There were a wide range of people, and it just had a good energy to the place. The food, I thought, was outstanding. I had a ribeye steak that was wonderful. And one of my friends had short ribs, and he said they were the best he's ever had. I absolutely loved the pickles that they brought.
Yes.
They were like the best. And I asked whether, you could purchase them, and you can get them by the quart.
No kidding.
For takeout, yeah. We had great drinks with the pickles.
What'd you get?
A friend of mine ordered a pomegranate special, and he loved it. He said it was great. I had a gin martini, and it was, the gin was from a local distillery, Koval. Yeah, I had never heard of it before.
Ravenswood.
you
I didn't know they made gin.
Yeah.
I knew they made whiskey.
They
I
also
didn't know
make gin. Yeah.
We also started out with the wing sampler. So it had the smoked wings, the buffalo wings, and the barbecue wings.
I'm a big sucker for wings. I didn't love the wings. They were a little bit too, they were small and they were a little too fatty and they weren't fried. I couldn't tell if they were smoked or grilled. They were just a little too soggy for me.
Really, the one thing I like about it is even though they're small, there's a lot of meat on the bone. Like usually you'll go to a place and they have big wings, but it's mostly bone. And this actually has the opposite issue.
Some of the rules of a kosher diet are you can't have dairy with your meat, can't eat pork because you can't eat cloven animals with hooves. Lila, how did it compare to a non-kosher barbecue place?
So I think I think knowing that it was a kosher place, I maybe went in with a different standard, but I would say that because I don't keep kosher, I would probably choose some of the other barbecue places around town. I'm a big pork eater, so certainly that's a big part for me.
That'd be a deal breaker.
I love I love pulled pork, but the brisket I order all the time. And I would say the brisket was good. And the fries were delicious.
That's
That
true.
was
The fries are
actually
pretty good.
probably my favorite
Yeah.
part.
Oh, yeah.
So Carl, what's the service like?
Service there is great. Everyone's knowledgeable about the ingredients. Everyone's friendly. It's got a good youthful energy to it. But I think the other thing is that they're really good about letting you know which charities are benefiting from your meal.
See, I would disagree. So we sat outside and there was a big sign on the window that was talking about the charity. And I had read up a little bit about it before we went. So I was very curious and I was hoping that the server would tell us a little bit about it. He didn't explain the concept of the restaurant. He didn't explain the charity. So I was like, oh, there's so many different things about this restaurant that are interesting. I was really hoping they would share it.
Actually, my experience, I've been there a handful of times. Usually the waiters are very knowledgeable and very happy to share with you what you're eating and what your money's going to.
Our server was extremely knowledgeable, and we had some questions, and she just gave us really good answers, complete answers. Seemed totally familiar with everything.
So Carl, you chose Milt's Barbecue for the Perplexed. Sum it up for us.
It's delicious barbecue food for people who observe kosher, people who don't observe kosher, and people who want to contribute to the community.
Great. And Jerry?
Sophisticated barbecue with great cocktails.
Perfect. Lila?
Delicious brisket, amazing fries in a really fun neighborhood.
You can try the brisket and more at Milt's Barbecue for the Perplexed, 3411 North Broadway, 773-661-6384. Open for lunch and dinner Sunday through Thursday, lunch only on Friday, and closed on Saturday. Reservations are accepted, and the average tab per person without drinks is $28. Lila Chen says there are so many restaurants in Chinatown that it can tie you up in knots. But when she wants something classic with a modern twist, she says you gotta follow her to Archer Avenue and join her at Strings Ramen.
Putting a ramen shop in Chicago is a cool thing because if I go to Japan, I go to China, I only dealing with one group. But here I dealing with like diversity of people. So how do we actually create something that makes sure that everybody like it, and then there's a big challenge of that. Of course, the noodle we hand make ourselves downstairs. So that's make the difference of a good ramen that you pay a lot of passions into it. Our staff actually normally bring it down to let the customer know. One thing is the ramen is very hot. First thing is you mix the broth a little bit, you zipping a little broth, and then enjoy with the ramen the rest of it. Of course, we try to create and give them a good comfortable atmosphere environment. Ramen shop is like a different food. It's a comfort food. The food that you actually can pop in any time. You don't have to dress up. You don't have to wear. You don't have to worry about anything. Just come and enjoy a bowl of ramen and go. Any kind of opportunity that you're hungry, we're here for you. You know, 24 hours. You know, almost. You know, so that's what we are. So very happy about it.
So Lila, you say Strings Ramen is the best ramen in town. Why?
So I have been trying out all the different ramen places around town. Strings makes all of their ramen in-house. They actually make it in the basement. There's one person that just sits there the whole day packing down ramen and putting it through a machine.
Very old school.
Very old school. They also make a very traditional tonkotsu, I can say that right, broth, which is pork bone marrow sitting in a broth for 48 hours. So that's why when you order the tonkotsu, you see that it's almost milky because all the marrow has been boiled out of it. So whenever we feel like trying a little bit something different in the South Loop, super close to our place, we go over to Strings, and there's just a lot of different options between the rice bowls and the noodles and the appetizers. And it's BYOB, which is great.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. My wife had the tonkatsu, I think, which I thought was very good. It was a little on the salty side for me. But the reason I loved it so much was I had to have the hell ramen, which was offered. Apparently, it goes levels 1 through 5.
Right.
And levels 4 and 5, you have to sign a medical release waiver in order to have the meal. And I was told by my wife I couldn't do that.
Because that's reassuring when you're eating.
It actually sounds like a great.
Good.
Exactly. I knew it was going to be great, but I tried level 2, and I loved it. It had let's say pork and duck breast in it. I was pouring sweat the entire time I was eating it, and I absolutely loved it. It was an incredible experience. The one thing I didn't like though, other than the saltiness of the tonkatsu, was as an appetizer we ordered the crispy pork skin, and it was like pork rinds in a glass, and I found that to be nowhere near the bang for the buck, and I think they should have at least put a description of what the appetizers were so I knew to avoid it. But with that said, I absolutely loved the hell ramen. I want to do it again at maybe level 3. Something I did like is they encourage you to slurp loudly. I thought that was kind of fun, and it was kind of unavoidable at a certain part.
The reason they tell you to do that, one, it's in Japan. If you're in Japan, that's actually a sign of respect that the food is good, but also it has a functional purpose of when you're slurping the noodles. The way they slurp into your mouth, it cools them while they're going into your mouth. So there's actually a functional purpose to doing that. But I have a question for Jerry. I assume you did not go to hell ramen.
No.
No. What did
And
you
they didn't
have?
offer heaven ramen.
So what did you try then?
We started with 2 appetizers. We had the shiraka broccoli, which was my most favorite thing in the place. It was wonderful. Broccoli was nice and crunchy. It was great. And then we also had the wasabi green beans. Not too hot, but you knew there was wasabi there. And the ramen, and one had the rice bowl with spicy crab.
Oh, I love that.
I tasted that. I thought,
It's so good. And it's so, I think it's a really good bang for your buck.
Yeah.
For the rice bowl, you get, I actually ordered the 2-topping one with ikura, which is salmon roe, and it's delicious, and spicy scallop.
All of us said we definitely are going back because, first of all, it was fun. Just
Did you
as a-
BYOB?
Yeah, we had 3 bottles of wine for 4 of us. But the service was friendly. People just were having a good time.
Yeah.
And and like I said, it was new flavors for all of us. And so that was part of the fun.
So Carl, what did you think of the decor and just the restaurant itself, the vibe?
It's a very small restaurant. It's almost built like into a brownstone, so it's very narrow and it goes far back. It looked like a traditional noodle shop, when you see in pop culture. But we got to sit with some other people who were trying the restaurant for the first time as well, and so it was kind of a group experience, which was really nice. But unfortunately, we were kind of shuttled in and out because it's a very popular restaurant. It's a very small restaurant.
I like the open kitchen.
That was cool. I did like the open kitchen.
Kind of get to see things happening.
The owner, one of the owners, Ki-chan, he has an interior design background, but then also grew up cooking, and he spent time in Japan. Japan. And so the way the restaurant is designed is, it's kind of like long and thin, and there's some lanterns, and it's supposed to kind of be reminiscent of a lot of the street food alleys that you'll find throughout Tokyo.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the feel they're going for, is you kind of go, you get a quick meal with your friends, and then you're off.
I had never been to Chinatown before, and one of our group was really familiar, so we went walking afterwards, and he was pointing out, now you have to try this restaurant, you have to try that restaurant. And
I always stop for bubble tea when I'm in
Yeah,
Chinatown after my
and
meal.
so
That would have helped with your hell ramen
Right.
sauce.
yeah, there you go. So we all agreed, this is definitely going to become a regular place for us.
Ella, you chose Strings Ramen. Sum it up for us.
So I would say for the most authentic and delicious ramen experience within city limits, definitely check out Strings Ramen. They have 48-hour made broth and homemade noodles. It's a great experience, super fun, and don't forget to BYOB.
Great. Carl?
It's an adventure, but it's an adventure well worth taking.
Great. Jerry?
Great flavors, wonderful service, and a fun experience.
You can try the ramen for yourself at Strings, 2141 South Archer, 312-374-3450. Open for lunch and dinner every day. Reservations are not accepted. Alcohol is BYOB, and the average tab per person is $15. Pastor Gerald Spice is a seasoned veteran at dining out, so it's no surprise that he's recommending a spot that customers have been flocking to for more than 30 years. He says for sumptuous steaks and more, follow him to Evanston and join him at Pete Miller's.
Thank you for calling Pete Miller's in Evanston.
Our namesake, Harold Pete Miller, his thing is he loved the good swinging jazz, a great scotch, and a good, honest meal. And when you walk in, that's kind of what we want you to feel like. You're walking back into the post-World War II era and just enjoying a great, honest meal with a great beverage and a great ambiance to follow. We are an American steakhouse. We're known for our garlic strip, very nicely marbled steak. And then for our garlic mashed potatoes, then we also offer creamed spinach and sauteed spinach, pecan green beans, broccoli, corn makachu. The other thing for me is the carrot cake, hands down. That is the best carrot cake I've ever had. We want them to come and tell their family and friends that the service, the food, the live music, you can't beat it.
So, Jerry, you give Pete Miller's high praise. Why'd you choose it?
Well, the first time I went there, it was because I had heard it was a great kind of steakhouse. As a friend of mine said, you go there for a red meat orgy. And, I love red meat, but I found that it's much more than that. The seafood is also wonderful. My favorite starter there are the oysters in the half shell. They're the best I've had in the area. There is a wonderful grouper, Chilean sea bass, there's a salmon, and there are lots of other things on the menu too that give it a well-rounded kind of feel. The added bonus for me is the music. They have live jazz every night. Sometimes I'll just go and sit at the bar and have a drink and a burger so I can listen to the music.
I loved it. We actually went with another couple, and it was kind of fun for us to just all sit back and relax and just kind of ease into the weekend. And we ordered the French onion soup, and my wife and I had to split it because, when they say it's a bowl, it's almost like a tureen.
Like, here's your cauldron.
Oh, absolutely. It was a cauldron of French onion soup. but it was very good French onion soup. So once we tackled that, I had the New York strip steak with a Parmesan crust and some Béarnaise sauce, because we really wanted to treat ourselves. And the side that came with it, it was garlic mashed potatoes, which were very well done. The only criticism that I had was, with the exception of the garlic mashed potatoes, which again I thought were excellent, I don't think a lot of care or attention were put into the sides. The macaroni and cheese, which we ordered for the table, was like 5 long noodles in almost like a soupy string cheese sauce, which we weren't crazy about. And then we ordered garlic broccoli, which it almost looked like just literally a stalk of broccoli with some garlic dropped over it. We weren't crazy about that. But the entrees were delicious.
My favorite side is the Parmesan creamed spinach.
Oh, that sounds good.
That sounds
really
good.
good.
I
Fabulous.
wish I would have gotten that too.
Absolutely
In
fabulous.
hindsight, we should have ordered that. But
Well, Lila, you went to school around there, and what'd you think? I mean, you were kind of familiar with Pete Miller's before.
Yeah, so I went to college at Northwestern, and actually my senior year, my boyfriend and I were working at a restaurant close by, and so after work we would go with all of our friends. Obviously, we were too broke to be able to eat in the actual dining area, but had lots of drinks in the other side of it. And we joked when I found out about this place, because we were like, wow, that's kind of where we found love. Oh, cheesy. But
It's adorable.
Good cheesy.
yeah, but it was nice to go back and to really, again, we also treated ourselves
yeah.
because it is pricier.
it's hard not to at that restaurant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we ordered probably enough to feed a small village. So we started out with the lobster bisque, and it was delicious and huge. But we also got the bacon wrapped scallops.
Oh, interesting.
And there were giant scallops, and it was delicious, and it had this succulent butternut squash sauce. We finished the scallops, and I was like licking it clean. I think the server was trying to rip it out of my hands at that point. And then he got the special bone-in ribeye.
Oh, nice.
Amazing. And I got the king size, because why be a queen when you can be a king, of the prime rib, which I loved. It was very well seasoned.
So that came with au jus and horseradish, right?
It did.
How was that?
I really liked it. I'm a big sucker for sauce, so I dipped, but you certainly didn't need to. I think when my boyfriend was eating his portion of mine, he just ate it straight. And then we also got the roasted mushrooms, which I love roasted mushrooms, but it said it was a wild mushroom medley, where I saw, I think, one shiitake and like one something else. So it was mostly button mushrooms, which I was like, it's good, but We also had the bananas Foster, which my boyfriend was like, we have.
I know she's so petite.
I mean, but the portions are huge. The portions are huge.
Well, we also got a lobster tail. So when I said we treated ourselves, I meant it.
Good, fair enough.
My
So,
favorite.
Carl and Lila, would you guys go back?
That would be a tough call. I live in the city, and there are so many good steakhouses near the city that we know that we're comfortable with that might give us just as good amount of food at a slightly cheaper price. So it'd be tough.
Yes, I would agree. I think it's a great restaurant, but with all the vast amounts of delicious steakhouses that we have in the city. But it was a great experience, especially with the live music. I think it's
I would
pretty
agree with
hard
that, yeah.
to find restaurants in here that has that old school vibe where you can go get dinner and a show.
We'll be spellbound with sunlight beneath the big oak tree.
The times I have been there, the music has always been first rate. It's not just some local amateur, but this is the good stuff.
So, Jerry, you chose Pete Miller. Sum it up for us.
Sophisticated steakhouse fare and much more.
Carl?
It's a decadent treat nestled right in Evanston.
Lila?
A great combination of a fun show and a lot of delicious food, but does come at a price.
You can try the steak and more at Pete Miller's, 1557 Sherman Avenue, 847-328-0399. Open for dinner every day, reservations are accepted, and the average tab per person without drinks is $42. So on this week's show, we featured Milt's Barbecue in Lakeview, Strings in Chinatown, and Pete Miller's in Evanston. Let's recap what our guests had to say. First, we stopped on Broadway and went to Milt's Barbecue for the Perplexed. Carl recommends it for their excellent barbecue with a kosher twist. Lila found it was a bit pricey, but thought their brisket was delicious. Jerry thought the service and barbecue were great and would go back for the cocktails. Next, we headed down to Archer and sat in at Strings. Lila recommends it for the best authentic ramen around. Carl loved the Hell Ramen and said it was quite an adventure. Jerry thought the food was great and will definitely go again for the fun experience. Lastly, we went to the northern suburbs and checked out Pete Miller's. Jerry recommends it for their great steak and seafood. Carl wasn't a fan of the side dishes, but would go back if he was in the area. Lila enjoyed the food and live music, but found it a bit pricey. We've had an awesome time this week. I want to thank my guests, Carl Shook, Lila Chen, and Gerald Spice. Join us next week for 3 new guests recommending 3 of their favorite restaurants right here on Check Please. I'm Catherine DiOrio, and I'll see you then. Cheers.
For more information about the restaurants featured on Check Please, go to WTTW.com/checkplease.